Welcome. We're going to call our meeting to order, and we will start with our flag salute. Dave, if you'll take care of that for us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And roll call.
Sorry. Commissioner West?
Here.
Van Essen? Present. Garcia? Present. Collins? Present. Barton?
Here.
Salgin?
Present. And so we have our minutes from last month. Did we have a chance to review those? Are there any questions, comments, or motions?
Motion to approve.
I will second.
All in favor?
Actually, you can do the,
We're going to do it on computer?
yeah, you should be able to, if you select the vote. George has to start.
Yes, and I'm looking for
Do
that.
you need me to do it, George?
Please.
Nikki, my moving didn't come up. Where do I find it?
Up on the top, that green one.
Second. Very good. Mr. Director, do we have any agenda changes for the evening?
No, we do not.
We do not. Okay. And at this time, we offer an opportunity for public comment on any items that are not on our agenda for the evening. Does anybody have anything they would like to say on something that is not on our agenda for the evening? It's nice to have you all here. Thank you. Okay, we'll move forward. And at this time, we will move into the public hearing. And the way it will work is I'll announce the item to be heard. City staff will present a report and recommendation. I will open the public hearing, and the order of testimony will be as follows. The applicant, then those in favor will have an opportunity to speak, those in opposition as well, and then a rebuttal by the applicant will be made available as well. After testimony has been given, I will close the public hearing, and then we will have some discussion. And once a decision has been made, there is opportunity for appeals that must be made to the City Council. You can do that by making sure that you are logged in the back, and then you'd need to appeal that to City Hall between the hours of 8 and 5, Monday through Friday. And so the planning staff can help you if you need some advice on that. So at this time, Mr. Zeidevart, where are we heading from here?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners. This time I'd like to introduce the staff report into record. Basically, what we have in front of us for the first time tonight is a request for a major site plan permit to construct a fourth pet food production line within the existing Diamond Pet Foods facility located at 942 Stockton Avenue. It's in the heavy industrial district. The fourth production line would increase the permitted total capacity of the plant to 1,040 tons per day, which is an increase of 260 tons per day from the existing capacity, which was at 780. To facilitate the increase in pet food production, an additional steam conditioning or unit extruder, or what they kind of an oven or cooker, would be installed in the steam conditioner room, as well as a fourth natural gas fired dryer cooler and vertical cooler. Additional blowers, kibble, take-up tubes, associated cyclones, and attrition handling equipment would also be installed within the existing production building. The two existing boilers are permitted for and currently have adequate capacity to handle the incremental steam requirements of this fourth line, as well as the steam requirements. All of the new equipment for the fourth production line and the facility will be located within the existing building there, so there'll be no actually building expansion. And the fourth production line will be routed through the RTO systems that were previously installed for odor abatement. We did have a workshop a couple weeks back where we went through this, so I won't go into a whole lot of detail more unless you guys have some more questions. There's some staff from Diamond here to answer questions as well, if you would like. There is a recommended action in the staff report, and at this time I turn it over to the city attorney. He wants to maybe go through a little bit of the recommended action in the staff report pertaining to the environmental.
Yeah, just the main point on this, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, is when this commission isn't often called upon to certify or adopt or approve an environmental impact report. And so I just wanted to make a couple of comments on that process and the standard that is required in order for the commission to make that finding and to certify that document. The recommendation of your staff is that you certify the final environmental impact report tonight. And the standard that it's held to, as the courts have repeatedly opined in the past, is one of adequacy. There's perfection and absolute agreement with every sentence and every syllable in that environmental impact report is not required. What is required is that the commission needs to make the determination, as staff is recommending, that there is a good faith effort in this document at full disclosure of all the environmental impacts associated with this project. And as long as that good faith effort at full disclosure is manifest in that document, and it's presented in the findings that are in front of you tonight as well, then the commission can go ahead and certify the environmental impact report. The law requires that the certification of that document occur before the project is approved. And that's why you see that in that sequence in the document tonight. It's only when the lead agency, as it's called in CEQA, which in this case is the City of Ripon acting through its Planning Commission, it's only when the determination is made that a good faith effort at full disclosure has occurred and that there is adequacy as to each and every section of that document that you can certify. And that's the reason why we are recommending, as your staff, that you certify the document this evening. So happy to answer any questions about that process. We've complied with CEQA in terms of its procedural requirements, that is posting, noticing, responding, organizationally in terms of the document, but also with respect to the substance of the document.
Very good, thank you. Ken, do you have anything further before we open it up?
No, I do not.
Okay, so at this point, we will open it up and testimony will begin with the applicant. Would the applicant like to speak? Guess not. Okay. And do we have anyone that would like to speak in favor of the project? Seeing none, we'll move to those in opposition. Is there someone that would like to give testimony in opposition? If so, you can take the podium and state your name and address, please. Seeing none, we have no need for any rebuttal then at this point. So I will close the public portion of the meeting here on this item, and then we can have discussions on our own, guys.
I'd just like to thank you, Ken, for that outstanding meeting that we had that was very informative. We spent over an hour looking at all of this, and the Diamond Pet Food people were there and they answered the questions. They've been a great part of our community. They continue to do things that are beneficial to the community, and as they look at their expansion, I think we've adequately addressed prior concerns, including odor. And I know that it's in the recommended action that we can change things if we have continued odor problems. Correct, Ken?
Yes, there is an odor management plan that's part of the CEQA process document.
So it looks to me like it's all been very well done.
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate that. I found the workshop that we had to be very, very helpful in understanding what was going on. The 125-page EIR, our city attorney, I did not read it word for word, so I really do feel like it was adequate, and I made a good faith effort to read the whole thing. But it was, I felt like we're prepared to make a decision, so unless there's more discussion, I'm ready to make a motion.
Mr. Barton?
Yeah, I think the EIR was, I agree, was thorough. There was a lengthy letter sent in by an individual objecting to the expansion of Diamond Pet Foods, and primarily centered around the odor issues. And I have some sympathy for some of his points because, as has been stated earlier, I live in a neighborhood that's impacted by Diamond Pet Foods operation, as well as the current mayor and a number of other residents. Nevertheless, as one judges a project, one attempts to find, I think, on balance, is the project beneficial for the community? And in spite of the fact that there is a lingering negative element relative to odor, it has been, in my opinion, significantly mitigated to this point. My expectation is that that will continue. And there are a number of steps in place that, should that not be the case when this expansion occurs, that this project, that it will be corrected. And if it's not corrected, then the fourth line will be taken offline until it is. So I think both the city, Diamond Pet Foods, the consultants have done a really thorough job of trying to address this and understand it. We know from our past meeting, Diamond Pet Foods has spent a considerable amount of money to mitigate this odor issue, and I'm satisfied that the expansion of that plant will be good for the community and is the right thing to do.
Anyone else like to speak? No? Okay, great. I feel the same way. Gary, thank you for all the effort that went into it from Diamond Pet Foods, from our consultants, from city staff. Lots of effort and thought went into it. It was a great report. Appreciated the meeting that we had previously, and in agreement with the odor management plan in place. I think we're on good footing to move forward with it. So do we have a motion?
Sure, I will make a motion that we certify the final EIR and adopt the attached findings for the project, adopt the mitigation monitoring and the reporting program, and approve the major site plan permit SR 21-18 for the Diamond Pet Foods expansion project based on the findings is subject to the conditions of the staff report.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Click. Very good. The motion passes. The EIR is accepted. Thank you again. We will move on to item B, the major site review and lot merger for Happy Days RV.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, the fellow commissioners. The second item here we have is a request for a major site plan permit to construct almost about a 40,000 square foot building for RV sales and service on two parcels totaling almost 10 acres, 9.79, in the mixed use district. The applicant is also requesting a lot merger with the application to merge the two parcels. Let's see, you can kind of see. You got it on mine or yours? Okay, thanks. There we go. Thank you. Thank you, Rob. They will be merging. There's two parcels here that are existing. One's actually a rectangular parcel along Canal. The other one's kind of an odd shape that is with adjacent to Camps Way and the newly installed Garrison Way. Let's see here. The proposed building will be constructed facing Camps Way and will contain approximately 8,950 square feet of indoor RV display area, approximately 10,000 square feet of retail RV part sales, offices, parts storage, conference rooms, break rooms, and training areas. And then they'll have about 20,500 square feet for RV servicing, which consists of 20 service bays. Let me zoom in a little bit for you. You can see some of that here in the drawing. Whoops, too far. So the indoor RV displays at the upper part of the structure you see on the site here. Offices and parts sales are kind of just south of that, and then there's about 20 service bays which extend towards Canal Boulevard. And here's a little bit more of a footprint of the indoor service areas and such. And a little bit more of the parts and office area, which is part of the 40,000 square foot building. The 40,000 square foot building will sit approximately 140 feet back from the front property line, which is Camps Way, and approximately 64 to 65 feet from the property line along Canal Boulevard. All the setbacks for the building exceed the minimum required for the mixed use district, which is 20 feet. The proposed building will be about 35 feet in height, which does comply with the Ripon Municipal Code for maximum building heights. Just for reference sake, the boat dealer next door to that's existing there, is about 30 feet high. So it's just slightly a little bit taller than the building there for the boat dealership. The remainder of the site will include recreational vehicle display sales area, which is about 250 spaces for parking and display of RVs. And there's some customer parking that's adjacent to Camps Way. Let's go back. Access to the site will be only off of Camps Way. There's 2 commercial driveways approaches that'll be installed there. Both accesses will have roll gates installed, so the site can be locked up at the end of each business day. The access furthest south on the site will be lined up with the neighboring Les Schwab driveway that runs across the street. That just makes for safer exiting and so the site, having the 2 driveways lined up. There will be no driveway, again, entrances off of Canal Boulevard or Garrison Way. The off-street parking for customers for the facility are all located up here in the front. There's a total of 60 parking spaces, which does meet the number required by local regulations. The site plan does indicate bike parking at the front of the main entrance of the building, which is in compliance with the Ripon Municipal Code. Zoom in a little bit here for some views for you. The exterior of the building will be a mixture of various metal siding in different orientations and colors, along with glass panel doors and windows. The building will be accented with metal awnings and canopies in varying spots around the building for architectural interest. The applicant has also indicated the entire site will be fenced and gated, and the proposed fencing material for the site will be an ornamental wrought iron type fencing, which is matching the neighbor's site, that Boat Country that's next door. They have a wrought iron fencing along with their site, so they plan to match that same fencing there. Just kind of scroll through some of the renderings that were submitted here. There's the fencing material. There's some other materials shown here on the site of what they plan to use. So pretty good mixture and variation going on to the building. The site contains approximately 16.5% of landscaping, which does slightly exceed the city standard of 15%. The applicant, they haven't submitted any landscape plans, detailed landscape plans for the site to date. However, those will be required to be submitted and approved at staff level. One of the conditions of approval within the site plan here is that the landscaping along Canal Boulevard be a heavy landscaping buffer to be approved at staff level, so we can kind of buffer the housing across the street from the site. So the idea is to buffer the view from those for the residential housing over there. It also would help as far as lighting impacts as well, buffering some of that. The plan does not depict site lighting. However, a detailed lighting plan will be required to be submitted, again, to be approved at staff level. We do have provisions in our municipal code that all lighting be shielded away from neighboring property so that there won't be lighting and glare. Will have to be kept onto their site there. Also indicated on the site plan is a trash enclosure, which is actually located kind of right here in the plan, kind of in the middle of the site, right by their shop building, tucked up against kind of the back of Alpine Climbing Gym. The trash enclosure will be required to be covered. And they'll be submitting plans for those to make sure that the roofing system and such is complementary to the main building on the site. All signage for the site will have to would be under a separate permit with the city. We'll have to comply with the Ripon Municipal Code. I do think they plan on being on the big freeway sign that's out there now, and then the rest of the signage would be actually on the building. So they won't have a standalone sign in front of their place on Canal. We did hold a meeting April 13th with the applicant and the project review committee, and all the concerns and conditions of approval have been incorporated to the staff report, which is in front of you this evening. So at this point, I would like to turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be happy to answer any questions. I do think they have some folks here from their team to answer questions if I can't cover this.
Very good. Thank you. Does anybody have a question for Ken?
Just a couple quick questions, Ken. Is there parking on camps?
No, there's no on-street parking on camps.
Okay, and then secondarily, towards the right on item 202 or page 202, there's a roundabout. And on the Happy Days side, is there going to be a gate that allows customers to park in that area and enter Happy Days, or no?
No, that's actually separate property, privately owned property over there. Parking that they have along Camps Way is adequate for their site for parking, the customer parking that's along camps. So there is no anticipation of a gate being on that site.
Okay. Thank you, Ken.
So Ken, so you said the only entrance and exit is on camps, correct? So there's no other way to get into the facility from any other street?
Correct. There is two commercial entrances off of camps. And then there will be an emergency entrance that the fire department's working with them on locating. I would believe it'll be off of Garrison Way just in case they need to get in for an emergency reason. So it won't be a site entrance that's open to the public unless it's absolutely necessary for an emergency standpoint.
So the drive that that is along with, is it Les Schwab? You said there's a drive?
Yeah,
But
it's
there's no-
directly across from it. So
Okay.
when you pull up to those, if there's cars at either of the driveways, it functions more as like a four-way or two-way stop in a road like that. So it's from a traffic standpoint, it's better to line them up than it is to have a driveway that's offset.
But there's no entrance into their facility from that driveway?
Their entrance is off of Camps Way.
Okay.
Yeah, not from the driveway, over by Les Schwab.
Thank you.
Can we make the signage that you described a provision?
Signage for,
You mentioned it would only be on the freeway, up with the other signs?
well, actually, they're not allowed to have a freestanding sign within this area here. So they do have it shown on the building, and they are putting one up on the freeway sign.
Okay, thank you, guys. Thank you, Ken. We'll open it up and love to hear from the applicant. If the applicant is present, would like to speak. Thank you. Again, state your name and address and approach the podium here.
Hi, my name is Adam Lovern, Lovern. I'm with RMW Architecture and Interiors. We are the architect on the project. We are at 1718 3rd Street in Sacramento, California. I want to thank Mr. Chairman and the fellow commissioners for the opportunity to present tonight, and also for the assistance with the planning department getting this through. I just want to let you know that we are here to answer any questions. We have our civil engineer, Adam Merrill with Siegfried. We have the contractor, Chad DeGraff, and we are also here with the owner of Happy Days as well. So if you have any questions, just let us know. We'd be happy to answer this. But otherwise, no presentation.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Do we have any questions for the applicant? David?
One question for the owner. I was excited when I heard this was coming to town. I have all the fond memories of the motorhome trips with my families, and it's going to be fun to go over and look around. And I may be in the market in the next couple of years. But you guys do RVs really well, which is obvious because you've got so many branches. You're so successful. Sometimes RV centers have big free barbecues and stuff like that. And you may exceed the parking capacity within your site. And am I wrong about that? Or I think you've got 60, 65 spaces. Will there possibly be events where you will exceed that parking? And then any thoughts on where they might go in a situation like that? Please.
If you'll approach the podium, please. Again, state your name and address.
My name's Ronnie Radigan. I'm with Happy Days RV. Usually any major offsite promotions or any site promotions we'll do pertain to RV shows only. We don't tend to have big promotions, barbecues and stuff like that at our locations. Would we have possibly like a grand opening or something like that? Yes. In my 25 years experience, have I ever drawn in 60 customers for free hot dogs? No. It would be ideal. It would be nice, but I don't believe that's probably going to, anything that we do, whether it be a grand opening or a customer appreciation, is actually drawing more than 60 people in one evening or one afternoon.
Thank you.
Very good. Anyone else?
I'm just curious, is this going to be the same plan type as your other stores? Do you do them all the same?
This is actually the first one that we're building.
Oh, okay.
So this is kind of a general plan. We've met with many people in the RV industry trying to find what we are trying to accomplish is to better serve the customers from a service side. There are other dealers locally that tend to work primarily on sales. We want to make sure that the customers getting the full experience, and that's why we've gone with this floor plan or this layout, so that way that we can accommodate all the service needs for the consumers.
Okay. So your other shops don't offer the service, or they do?
Just much smaller.
Okay.
Yeah, we have 7, 8 bays in Sacramento, and then we have 5 bays down in Gilroy, and 4 bays currently in our Livermore store.
You're going to be keeping all those stores open still?
Yes.
Okay.
Very good. Does anyone else have a question?
Will you play the Happy Days theme song?
If I knew what it was, RJ, that one's on you. He's a guitar player, not me.
Very good. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Do we have anyone that would like to speak in favor? And is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Again, seeing none, we have no need for rebuttal. Discussion.
Easy shopping for us.
Yeah. Sounds like none. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion that we adopt the project with the recommendations that are in our package.
Oh, I'll second it. Sorry. I'll second.
Very good. Passes 5 in favor, none against. And thank you. Look forward to you guys being in town. Really excited that you're bringing this to Ripon. Very good. Thanks a lot.
I see 2 guys buying RVs right now.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. So Ken, item C, the river development.
All right, thank you. Third item this evening, Mr. Chairman, would be a request for a major site plan permit to construct 4 buildings with common parking on approximately 3.2 acres in the light industrial district. That the total square footage of the buildings will be approximately almost 49,000 square feet and will be constructed in 2 phases. So right here you have the vicinity map. It's actually located down between Vera Avenue and Acacia Avenue on Doak Boulevard. There's some light industrial lots down there. And let's pull up the kind of the, whoops. site plan here for you if I can operate this thing. There you go. So the buildings to the east, buildings A and B on this plan would be phase one. Phase two is building C, kind of one L-shaped building there, sharing common parking areas. Phase one will consist of, like I said, two standalone buildings, buildings A and B. Building A will be approximately 13,000 square feet, and building B will be about 12,000 square feet. Phase two will consist of an L-shaped building on the plan, and that will be about a 24,000 square foot building. The phase one buildings will sit approximately 30 and 42 feet back from the front property line from Doak Boulevard, which the standard setbacks for this district is 20 feet, so they sit well beyond that from the front property line. They do sit 20 feet from the rear property line, so they do meet the requirements there, and 10 feet from each of the side property lines on the east and the west. The phase two buildings will sit about 30 feet from the front property line, within that L configuration there, and then 20 feet also again from the rear. The Ripon Municipal Code does allow for a reduced setback, which is normally 20 feet upon approval of the Planning Commission, the Ripon Consolidated Fire Department, and notification of adjacent landowners. Basically, the fire department has been aware of the reduced setbacks on each side, and they're okay with that. Planning Commission has been okay with that, and so has the neighboring properties. Let's see. The building itself is, the proposed buildings are about 25 feet in height, which does comply with our code, which has a maximum of 35 feet. Just for kind of a reference back in that area for you guys, the One Church building, which used to be the indoor hockey arena there, it's about 25 feet tall. So that this would match that. The hockey building, or the old hockey arena, the church, One Church now, that's got more of a flat roof, parapet roof. The style you'll see on these buildings is more of a hip and gable roof style, so it won't quite be 25 feet all the way around, obviously. All buildings for this project are intended to be leased out as flexible light industrial lease space. Each building and their associated proposed tenant spaces will be plumbed for their own restroom facilities, which will be constructed when they build out each of the spaces once they are leased with the tenant improvements. Main access to the site will be with one commercial driveway, which is existing already down on Doak Boulevard, kind of the center of the site here. And they will be actually shifting. There's a couple other driveway approaches down there. They'll be shifting to one to the east and one to the west as they do straddle property lines. So there's one to the east side of the site. As you can see, it will be shifting that one eastward to access just the one site that's there. It was a project that the Planning Commission previously approved about 1.5 years or so ago. And then there's actually a driveway approach, not really shown here, but there's one located here as well. That'll shift west. There's an owner of that site who's anticipating submitting to the Planning Commission here shortly for that site. The off-street parking for the facility provides a total of 86 spaces between the two phases. Phase one will consist of 33 standard spaces, 2 handicap, and 4 compact. Phase two will have 43 standard spaces and 4 handicap spaces. The total number of spaces provided does meet the number required by local regulations. And although there's no bike parking or bike racks indicated on the site plan here, they will be required to be located on the site pursuant to the Ripon Municipal Code. Let's see. So the exterior of the buildings appear to be a mixture of different combinations of architectural steel sheathing on the entire building, some glass panels and metal awnings adorning certain portions of the facility. The roof appears to be a metal gable roof style. Again, the maximum height at the peak here would be 25. The height. We'll just step through some of the renderings that were provided. Right. The site does contain approximately 21,000 square feet or 14.8% of landscaping, which slightly exceeds the city's requirement for light industrial, which is 10%. They have, again, not indicated any plant species at this time, but they will be required to submit detailed plans to city staff for approval. The site plan does not depict any lighting as well. However, they will be submitting a lighting plan as well. So we can ensure that the lighting is not focused on any neighboring properties, that they would be shielded appropriately so there's no glare bleeding off site. So that would have to be submitted to the planning department and the police department for approval. There's a couple trash enclosures indicated on site. Here's one here in the front of the site, again, located away from the neighboring north properties, which is on the other side of this would be residential. And then there's a second one for phase 2 over there on that site. Those again would be constructed with roof structures and they would have to be compatible with the design for the main building. Any signage would have to comply with the city's current standards. So as tenants came in and they wanted any signage on the front of their portion of the building, they would have to come in and get sign permits for those at that time. We did have a meeting with this design team on April 13th as well, and with the project review committee, and the conditions and concerns have been addressed in the staff report. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I do believe there's some folks here to
Excellent.
to cover this as well if you have others.
Very good. Thank you. Questions for Ken?
Yeah. Is there any windows planned for the backside that'll be able to view backyards?
No, so there's no windows in the back and there is no roll-up doors in the back. There is some man doors along the back side of the building, but there's an 8-foot masonry wall. So a man door would not be tall enough to have anything coming out of that to be able to see over the wall or anything like that.
I don't think I saw anywhere phase 1 and phase 2. What kind of a timeline are we looking at between the two phases?
I'd let maybe the applicant can answer that. I
Okay.
think they've shared with us they'd like to get phase 1 rolling and probably roll right into phase 2 as soon as phase 1 is getting a final. So that's kind of the anticipation, but they might be able to elaborate a little bit more on that.
Okay, and then I think I remember you saying when we kind of originally talked about this coming up that the same person who designed that other new building that we approved is designing this.
Yeah.
So it'll kind of look like that building? Or is it
Well,
gonna-
the other building, if you remember, had a little bit more like glass and stuff that was built into that one because they were hoping to maybe get some different users in there and maybe use some of it as office space on their building. So it's got similar design features, but not, yeah.
And do you know if that building is occupied?
That one has not been built yet.
Oh, okay, so the big blue one that's out there, what?
That's a different one. That's the DeGraff development. It was on the
Okay.
corner of Acacia and Doak.
Okay.
Yeah,
'Cause I
that one's
went-
being
went
leased
by
out
there.
by a company that does crafting supplies.
Okay.
Couple quick ones, Ken. Trash enclosures, I may have missed it. Where are they at?
Yeah, so there, one's up on phase 1. There's one that's up kind of closer to Doak Boulevard.
Okay.
Facing that way, the trucks can come in, pull the dumpsters out, dump them, and then obviously circle around the site and come back out the front. The other one is for phase 2 is kind of tucked here in the front as well, not facing Doak, but away from the residential lots.
Perfect, thank you. And then I was trying to determine exactly where it sets in conjunction. It's not going all the way to Vera, correct?
It's not, so let me see if I can look at my messy desktop here.
I love reading Google Maps.
That's a lot of stuff, Ken.
So, there's the building you were referring to. It was on this corner. That's the one that DeGraff Development built and it's being occupied now. There is another building here that was designed and then property is owned by NJ Architects. They're the ones that designed that building as well as this site as well. So that's this little narrow piece kind of right here is NJ Architects site. The next 4 parcels are this site, what we're talking about. So it comes up to about where that driveway is located there. Again, this driveway here and this driveway here are going to get shifted outward. So they have one driveway into the site, main focus driveway into the site that they're planning. There's an individual that owns the site here between their site and then there's a one on the corner as well. So there's 2 more sites west of this towards Vera Avenue.
Perfect. And all those neighbors back there, as I recall, are single story. It's only the last couple at the end that are double story, correct? Or
There's, yeah, I don't recall, fan. There's some 2 stories over there. I'm not sure exactly which ones. I think these 3 maybe over here are 2 stories. But there isn't the 8-foot masonry wall, which is a requirement for our code to have between residential and non-residential.
perfect. Thank you, Ken.
Forget, is there a suicide lane there? So if you're pulling out of there.
Yes.
east,
Yeah, right on Doak here.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's it's a, what they call 2-way left turn lane that's striped on Doak
What will
Boulevard.
access look like exiting there? Will you be able to turn left?
Yeah. You can turn left, you can get out in that lane and then merge over.
I just have one other quick question. Back on the rendering pages that you were on, is that an easement going through phase 2? I couldn't.
Yeah, so there along that masonry wall, there's a 20-foot sewer easement back there. That's where the sewer runs for all those lots. So you can't build any structures on that 20-foot easement. So actually, the fire department, one of their conditions was making that 20-foot section in the back to be paved, so it could be an emergency access out in case something they need to have some other ways out to the project. So yeah, it's an easement that runs all the way out to Vera.
Ken, are we talked about the setbacks and you mentioned 20 feet. Is there anywhere where we're having to make any kind of an allowance on?
Yeah,
Is it the A building?
A and the L-shaped building over here
Both
on the
of
other
them.
side.
Okay.
Yeah, we've done that on actually an adjacent parcel here. When they kind of created some of these parcels, they began to get a little narrow when you start looking at 20-foot setbacks around the whole building for some of these sites. So there's been some provisions. It's within our code to do it, is to allow some of these sites where they butt up against another like industrial use or such, as long as the fire department's not concerned from a safety standpoint, to let them encroach down on that 20-foot setback. So they're proposing a 10-foot setback on each side on the east and west side, basically.
Okay. And did you say landscape plans have not been submitted yet on this?
They have not, but you can see the kind of the green areas here
Right.
on the plan of where they anticipate landscaping to be for the site. But they will be submitting a full landscape plan for the site and the parking lot and all that.
Thank you.
Ken, are there plans for a monument sign of any kind out on Doak, identifying the various tenants?
Yeah, they actually have one here, and it kind of when you drive in, you can see it there, that they want to put with the tenants on it. So it'd be like a industrial center sign that would list all the tenants on there. That's the only signage they have anticipated for, except for possibly on the buildings itself would have some signage.
If no one else has a question, I'll open it up to the applicant. And would the applicant like to give testimony? Nope. Okay. Oh. Spoke too soon.
Hello, my name is Nick Seward. I'm the architect on the project. My address is 212 West Pine Street, Suite 1, Lodi, California, 95240. As we mentioned, we're the architect on the project. We also own an adjacent site, so we're pretty familiar with this area in Ripon, and it's been great working with Ken and their team on this project. The clients are pretty excited to develop this area. It originally started out with just the phase 1 approach, and then they were able to acquire the other 2 parcels to expand it. We talked about, you mentioned phasing a little bit. So their plan there is to ultimately do it as fast as they can. That's their goal here. They want to get this building built, or these multiple buildings built and leased out to potential tenants for an light industrial suites. So phase one would likely happen right away. We're actually working on construction documents as we speak, looking at working with the civil and our electrical engineer and landscape as well. And then phase two, we would hope to roll into it or potentially start at the same time, depending on the client's discretion on that.
Very good.
Do we have any idea what sort of tenants are looking at it, or?
We're mainly looking at contractor suites. We're pretty developed on the site in terms of, parking kind of always dictates developments in jurisdictions. And so we're pretty maxed out on square footage in terms of building for the use allowed, which would mainly be contractor suites. We could probably squeeze some other potential tenants in there, like maybe one office, a smaller office tenant, but the main focus here is contractor suites. And so that's why we designed ample garage doors. And you can kind of see in the site plan, we did a study of, how many potential suites we can get in there, breaking it down. It's an initial study. It's, these demising walls are non-structural, so they could be torn down and a tenant can take over multiple suites, but we allowed for maximum use. And so we tried to maximize the parking as well. And we worked with Ken on that, to see where we can kind of fall and maximize development. And like Ken mentioned, we're above the threshold of landscaping too. So we're just really trying to maximize that site's potential use and get as much out of it as we can.
The way it's laid out currently with your demising walls, what kind of average suite size are we talking about here?
I think we were looking at 2,500. Chris, Tim, is that about right? Yeah. I think it was about 2,500 a suite.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to about 3,000, somewhere around there. So yeah.
Quick question, the construction material on the rear
Uh-huh.
of the building, what is that?
At the residential side?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we would carry, so the majority of the material is going to be either a corrugated or kind of like a box rib metal siding panel. And we would carry that around the back too, on the back sides. As was mentioned earlier, we tried to limit the amount of openings on the back side. So there's no windows, or really trying to limit the fenestrations that way, just being aware of the noise issue, the potential noise issue with the surrounding neighbors. So we were pretty aware of that during the design process. So we're looking at just continuing the siding around there, just keeping it clean. The front is where we really kind of focus architecturally on creating, more of a unique image for the complex and trying to draw people's eyes, from Doak, that there's something here, and with the monument sign, as was mentioned, to kind of direct people in wayfinding, since we have one main entrance, it's pretty obvious, where to go from that point.
Perfect. Love the design of your last building, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah.
Tina's and everything.
We're in the market for tenants,
On that corrugated material, is there any insulation on that or anything that would reduce sound going through it, or?
Yes. So we're going to start out with some pretty minimal insulation as is. And then as tenants come in, we'll kind of address that. The clients will address that, on their needs. But we will be starting out with some insulation especially I believe at the roof we talked about, and then the walls will be minimal to start with. And then as tenants come in, we would add more as needed.
But the exterior panels in the back there are not insulated panels, though.
They're not insulated panels. Neither are the side panels. They're not insulated panels. They're a lot of times in development, they're ideal, but they're pretty cost prohibitive a lot of times when it comes to development, just the cost per square foot. So there's other ways to mitigate sound through, batt insulation, or like a rigid foam insulation, which is similar to the rigid insulated metal panels, but it's just more cost effective. So we're looking at those measures instead of actually doing an insulated metal panel.
Okay.
And then just keeping the openings to a minimum at the back.
Sure. Anyone else for our applicant? Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it. All
Thank
right.
you.
And is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this application? It's either in favor or opposed, so you can pick when you want to walk up, so. Okay. And please just state your name and address when you approach the podium here.
My name is Kevin Lacasse, Lacasse. I'm a resident of 834 7th Street. So your question about two-story houses, one of them is mine. But I have a few questions and just more questions probably for the contractor, just speaking with some of our neighbors. I'll try to remember. I'm going to go backwards from what you just said as far as the noise insulation, having lived there. The second stories of those houses, you can see and hear everything on Doak. So the one concern would be that lighting. Where I work in Ripon, out in the residential, the wine group, we have the side metal siding. It's like a big amplifier. So I would please ask the planning board to consider that. I'm not sure exactly what light industrial is when you say contractor buildings. Is that like a tire shop, or what constitutes light industrial?
We'll just give us your questions and we'll get you
Yep,
answers.
so that's one of them.
Okay.
The other one is the lighting, that 20-foot setback on the back. If you go, the example I was going to give is like Ace Hardware. If you go behind that one of the concerns the neighbors have, if you go behind there, that's like the local smoking area for those things behind Ace Hardware and the other shops, is people go behind there and that's where they sit and smoke during their breaks and all. That is a concern for us over the fence. Those are our backyards, that you can see that. The other thing is the lighting. There's no setback. If you look at the pictures on that, it's 20 feet right up to that wall. And if you look at what I'm kind of worried about is it's after the fact discretion of the planning board on there is the lighting, and it's up to whatever they propose. If the lighting is on the building, it's coming towards the houses, and you can see that. You can see right down, and I went out and walked that 20 feet, and you can see right where that is if they move that setback like 2 feet or so along the walls and had so we're looking north as the top and south is the bottom of that picture. If you put like a 2-foot setback and lighting poles up there, so we're pointing south, by anything from the building is going to be pointing north right towards the houses. Even if it's aimed down, you can still see it. So consideration for that against that wall is one of the other questions on that.
Very good.
And I'm just trying to think if there's anything else. It was lights, the smoking area in the back, what light industrial means, and then the sound. So
Okay. Hang on right there and we'll try to get you some answers.
Okay, thank you.
So Ken, in terms of what they're proposing for this building, I would be concerned lighting wise too, if it was in my backyard. But lighting can be directed. Ripon Christian, I was involved in that project is an example of that, where we had to come back and put shielding so that we did not have light washing into the neighbors' yards. Are there any like wall washes, lights that are on this building that would be outgoing towards the neighbors?
They haven't proposed their lighting plan yet, so
They have not.
when we look at their lighting plans, we have to look at, make sure obviously they're shielding and the glare will not be glaring into neighboring properties. So that's something that's addressed within the municipal code as is basically
Right.
shielding lighting so you don't glare on properties. Really hard to answer exactly what kind of shielding it would be or where the lighting is going to be at.
But that will be reviewed and do their best to make sure that's mitigated.
Just on this one though, if the building is already going, there's going to be no opportunity for anything to point south, only north off that building. If you have the 20-foot, if there's nothing else there except the pave to that existing wall. So
You're correct. It could be lighting that's actually a little bit lower, like more of the man door level and shielded downward. It could be lighting that's even placed along the backside, along the wall, shining towards the building. There's a lot of ways to deal with it.
yeah, I mean, I live there and I can see it every day. So that was that consideration, especially 2-story houses all along there. That's just one of the concerns that people have was the lighting and then what the industrial considered? What was the big ones?
Yeah, as far as light industrial uses, the Ripon Municipal Code has kind of a chart of uses that are allowed in light industrial. So, I mean, it's kind of anything that's on that chart that could locate in there. That's what the zoning law covers. So, I
So
mean,
is it up to, like you'd said, is it up to whoever the tenant is to decide whether they're going to insulate or not? Or is that you guys deciding, the tenant saying they better insulate inside those walls if they're going to have something like a
so along with
tire shop or
along with
something?
lighting and glare in our ordinance, we also do have noise ordinance. So if somebody is going to be causing extra noise on that, we would be looking at that during tenant improvements and making sure they're complying with the noise ordinance.
Thank you, Ken.
The only last question is what kind of oversight do you guys have as far as what people do out that back door? Because we don't want that to turn into a smoking area, but that's not under any of your ordinance, right?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, I can respond to that.
Mr. Lacoste, thank you very much.
Nick Seward again, the architect. Yeah, so regarding the concern with potential people hanging out in the back there. So it was initially a comment from the fire department for us to provide emergency access back there. So that means that that space cannot be utilized by the contractor suites or anything like that. We can't have cars parked back there, and it will be fenced off. So it's for emergency accesses only. So there'll be knock boxes and gates between the properties. So there'll be a series of gates, and likely that will be also incurred on future development to the west to carry that out to, what was that street, Ken? It's Vera
Avenue.
Verde. So there'll probably likely be, I envision maybe 3 or 4 gates along there. So for someone to get back there, they'd have to be pretty ambitious.
Oh, just for you, like if you go to Ace Hardware, it's that door is what they go, they prop it open, they sit back there, and that's the smoking area. So it's whoever the tenant is.
You're talking about, yeah, the user.
Is the user is the one who's the part.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know how to control that. Like I said, we are trying to limit the amount of fenestration, which means openings along that wall. So we are only providing man doors, and we don't know who the tenants are yet. So we're looking at that as a potential life safety issue, or we might be required to have multiple exits. So that would be the reasoning to show the man door at this time to, for that purpose. It might not be needed at all, and there might not need to be a door there. We just don't know who the tenants are. Like Ken mentioned, there's several allowed uses under light industrial, and there's some uses that require conditional, approval through planning commission like this, as tenants come up. So they would have to go through that approval process during that time. But the developer's intent for this project is contractor suites. So like a tire shop would not be one of those tenants. And I think, we've mentioned noise to the developer as a concern, not only from the city, but neighbors like yourself. And so they are aware of that. And we have had discussions about insulation and how we can improve sound quality. The metal panel is a pretty common material for industrial buildings, and it's pretty cost effective. And it probably provides a little bit more noise dampening because of the corrugation, other than like a stucco building, which is just a straight hard surface like drywall. So it actually would reflect more noise. So I think it's probably the best solution, other than a softer material, which wood doesn't really hold up too well outside. So that's why we're choosing the metal panel. But we think we can, as tenants approach them, the developer, we can look at different ways to mitigate sound, as a concern along that back wall.
Did you say that back door is an emergency exit?
So depending on what the use is and the occupant load, we would be required to have either 1 exit or 2 exits. And it also has to do with travel distance. There's a number of things that can trigger that. So if need be, it might have to be used as an emergency exit. And typically an exit like that into that alley or emergency access road for the fire department and police department it would typically be locked at all times. And you'd probably see them all the time when you go to other buildings where it would say like a sign on them saying that this door's locked, and if you not locked, but if you open it up, an alarm's going to go off. Yeah, that'd be a pretty common scenario. So I hope that answers your question.
Nick, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
One more question. Are you able to lower the lighting so that it is above the man doors or not?
Yeah, sorry, I meant to comment on that too. We'll have to work with the fire department and the police department, like Ken said on that. We have not submitted the lighting plan yet, just because it wasn't necessarily required to go through this process, and to help streamline this process for the client. But we would talk to the fire department and the police department about how they want that emergency. My biggest concern would be, we really only have the man doors, so really we'd only need a light at the man doors by code. But because they designate it as emergency egress, we need to kind of speak with them and see what they're wanting there. They might be fine with adding, us lighting it from the south, to help mitigate that concern. Obviously, that would be at the city and the developer's discretion, on moving forward with that. But we'll certainly have that conversation when we approach the lighting plan.
Excellent. Very good.
So I think the goal, to answer that, the goal would be to try and mitigate the lighting, but still meet the code requirements and the city's requirements for that emergency access.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Since he's up in rebuttal, is there anybody else that would like to ask a question of Mr. Seward? No? Okay, very good. Thanks so
Thank you.
much. Okay, excellent. I don't think there was anybody else that was going to speak in opposition. Am I correct in that? Okay, very good. We'll take that as rebuttal and we will close that portion of our meeting and we'll talk about it amongst ourselves then. Thoughts?
It's an attractive building. If I was a homeowner on that street, I probably would have the same concerns that you have, sir. I live adjacent to school and I know all about noise during the day. They have, it's within our zoning for that property. It could be a 2-story or it could be something that was a lot noisier. So it really is a pretty good project. Mostly my request would be just for the developer, if possible, as a good neighbor, and I would not make it part of the conditions of approval. Please consider doing what insulation you can on the back to try and reduce noise and then, mitigate the lighting as you're already looking at doing.
I'm going to suggest that possibly you might find that things are a little quieter once those buildings and the landscaping is in there. Like you said, you can see and hear everything that goes on Doak, and you're going to be shielded from some of that. So it may have a positive effect. I don't know. I'm just thinking it's less openness. There may be less noise.
Ken, slightly repetitive here. What did you say the height was on these buildings? Is it 25?
25 feet.
Okay, thank you.
That's likely at the peak.
That's at the peak of the building. So,
Okay.
yeah.
What happens if it's like Diamond, where we're getting phone calls left and right? What happens?
Well, then it gets into our code enforcement process. Code enforcement deals with noise ordinance, would be paying visits to people out there and possibly even the building owners and trying to mitigate and reduce the noise to what our code is allowable for noise.
Okay, so there's a process in place, sir, for that. Hopefully you don't have to experience it though. Absolutely, yeah.
Does anybody else have a comment or question? No? Seeing none, how about a motion?
Oh, okay. I will make a motion that we approve the major site plan permit SR 21-19 for is it Kazan River LLC development based on the findings and subject to the conditions of the staff report and adopt the negative declaration.
Do we have a second?
Second.
And we are passed again 5-0. Thank you very much. Look forward to an exciting project out there as well. Thank you, guys. All right. Ken, let's move on to item D,
All
major
right.
site review.
Our finish line here, this final item tonight, actually is a request for major site plan permit to construct about a 12,500 square foot City of Ripon Public Works building containing 3 maintenance bays, office space, locker rooms, common area, and support spaces located at 444 Doak Boulevard, which is in the heavy industrial district. It is directly adjacent to our compressed natural gas station that's back there, and there's a parking lot for the bike trail that's down there. Also, there is a small bus barn down there, and that would recharge our compressed natural gas vehicles that's already existing. You can see on the vicinity map. Let's see. Zoom in here for you guys. The 12,500 square foot building will be constructed facing Doak Boulevard and will be constructed somewhat in the center of phase 1. There's multiple phases here for future growth of the corporation yard master plan or master site back there. The building is about 95 feet from Doak Boulevard, so it sits quite a ways back from the front property line. And all the other setbacks for the building greatly exceed the minimum required, which is the 20 feet, as we mentioned in previous staff reports. The proposed building will be 32 feet in height. So 35 is our tallest for the municipal code. Access to the site will be provided by 2 commercial driveways, both of them off Doak Boulevard. One of them currently exists, which is the eastern driveway. That goes to the kind of the CNG charging station for the bus site. The second driveway approach will be installed with this project. Both accesses will have roll gates located behind the front parking lot area to secure the site at the end of each business day. The off-street parking facility for employees and customers provides for 40 total spaces, 36 standard and 4 handicap, which is more than sufficient to serve this type of use. The site plan does include indicate bike parking and bike lockers near the front of the northwest section of the building. So let me see if I can kind of up in this area here would be the bike lockers and bike parking. Let's see. So the exterior of the building will be a mixture of various metal sidings in different orientations and colors, along with concrete masonry block walls along the lower portion of the shop building. The building will be accented with metal awnings and canopies in varying spots around the building for architectural interest. Besides the front parking lot area, the entire site will be fenced and gated, and the proposed fencing material for the site will be an ornamental wrought iron type fencing, matching what's existing around the current bus CNG parking area right now. We'll step through there's some of the elevation drawings of it and differing views of it. And then the floor plan itself, you can see they've got some locker rooms. There's a conference type room, locker rooms, office space, quite a few bays for vehicle maintenance. Just some other facilities, spaces in there for machine shop, tire shop, and such, just for vehicle maintenance. So the site currently shows approximately 7.5% of site landscaping, which you're seeing exact at the front of the building, along Doak Boulevard there and throughout the parking lot, which is a little bit under the city standard of 10%. So a conceptual landscape plan, as you're seeing here, was submitted, but they will be submitting a final plan, and they will be required to get up to that 10% coverage. So they'll have to locate some other spots around the site. Could be around the back of the site and such, where they would plug an additional 2.5% at least in to get us up to the 10%. The site plan does indicate site lighting, which if I zoom up here a little bit, you can see is around the perimeter of the site. That's these square lighting areas here. And I think I even have it on another page here showing the whole site.
I'm curious, Ken, who's they? It's our building, right?
We have an architect that's doing the work that is putting it together for us. Yeah. I was the landscaper. So basically, there's some lighting around the building and such, around the perimeter of the parking lot. There'll probably be some lighting that's actually mounted to the building itself. Again, making sure that we're not producing glare on neighboring properties, as our ordinance requires. There's a site, there's a trash enclosure located kind of at the rear of the site in the back corner. Again, has to be covered. Basically will be designing the roof and roofing system such to be complementary to the metal building that's there. So they'll have to submit plans for that. Any signage for the building, we'll go through the sign permit application. We'll make sure it does comply with the Ripon municipal code as far as sign area and such. As you can see a little bit here on the building on the conceptual plan. We did go over the project at the April 13th project review meeting, and all the conditions are in the staff report. It's in front of you this evening. So at this time, I'll turn it over to you,
Great.
Mr. Chairman, and I guess I'll be representing the applicant since
Thank you, Mr.
James
Director.
took the night off. So
Well, that's right. You can stay there. Do we have questions? Thank you for addressing the landscape. I was going to ask about the difference between the 7.5 and 10, but they have to make it up somewhere on the site.
Right. We require that of everybody else, so we are trying to follow our own rules here.
Right.
So
Good. Excellent. Any other questions for Ken?
Basically, they are wrapping up the bid plans right now, and they're looking to go out to bid here in the next 30 to 45 days.
So this is basically a maintenance type. There's not offices there or anything.
There is some office space, or at least an office space, I think, in here, if I can zoom in on it. But yeah, it's more for the maintenance facility.
So where is that now? Where does the city have its maintenance now? Is that?
Right here.
Is
See
that
Doak and Vera?
Yeah, okay.
This is their maintenance building
Okay.
right here now. They do a lot of equipment storage and stuff and part storage in this building.
Okay.
This is where they do the vehicle maintenance. So that's what will be locating over to the new site.
Okay.
What's the existing place going to be used for? Kind of the same thing as it is now?
Yeah, I mean, that's the additional phasing of this area eventually. They've set this site up over here to be kind of a master plan. So they're looking to build this maintenance vehicle maintenance building now, and then eventually we'll have separate buildings for each of the departments, like water department, sewer department. Long phase plan, obviously, but that's where the future stuff would end up.
So the city does own all that property now?
Correct.
And is it going to look that beautiful as was in the picture?
Well, these renderings always tend to, in my opinion, look a little nicer than what you see on the ground. But I mean, it'll look like that. They make them look really nice when they show them on these drawings. But
They deserve it.
Kenny, you mentioned to make up the difference on the landscaping, something might be put in the back of the site. I'd encourage you to find a solution to do it toward the front of the site. You want the site to be something that the city is proud of, and landscaping, as we know, is an important part of that. If you stick it in the back of the lot, no one's going to see it. It's going to have no aesthetic impact. So you're still, nothing's been built out there yet. So now's the time to figure out how to do it right and get it toward the front of the site.
yeah, I mean, I agree wholeheartedly with your sentiments on landscaping. I think, unfortunately, you're seeing as much landscaping as we can get in the front of this building. They've plugged in landscaping everywhere they can get it. So obviously, we want to keep landscaping to where it's visible more from the public way as much as we can. To that extent, we'll try to make sure it gets into the front of the building. We just might have to plug some in around some of the other parts of it, unfortunately. But we will take our best effort at that.
Good encouragement. Do we have anybody else that would like to speak in favor of the project? No. And is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Again, seeing none, no need for rebuttal. We'll close the public session and we can talk some more amongst ourselves if needs be, or we can make a motion. Agreed. Yes, got some exciting things coming in.
I'm curious, I mean, if we add that in the back, I mean, aren't we just taking away workspace from our guys? And I mean, we do make exceptions for people with stuff like this, like we just did with the setback. I mean, can't we make a suggestion if that's better for our guys to have more workspace instead of trees that nobody's ever going to see?
Well, the setback for one is actually allowed within our code, so we can
I'm
make
just
that.
referring to that as the setback.
Yeah, so that's a provision that's allowed. We've plugged as much as we can in at the front of the site without tearing parking lot out and making less parking spaces and such like that.
No, but what I'm saying is, I mean, can we just not do the extra landscaping that nobody's ever going to see and give our guys more workspace back there? Possible?
Well, so you've got sites like this area here, that's outside of the fenced area, that's part of the site. You can plug some stuff in these areas. They might need to anyways, just for stormwater retention and such, where they can landscape. I think yeah, we're not going to dig into our site here where the parking such is or workspace, but there is some more space behind that site. If you can envision, you just pull it up here. That site, it backs up to the wastewater treatment facility. So there's some opportunities to even expand some of this landscaping from the existing parking lot and such if we have to. And it will not affect the workspace.
Oh, okay.
You guys have a nice water view there.
Yeah. And I think we want to be careful about precedent too. I mean, we don't want to be taking shortcuts on ours and then expecting everybody else to live up to that 10% standard.
Yeah, I think certainly we will focus as much as we can to the front as possible. Probably fill in every space we can up there with landscaping and see what our percentage is. I think as they shown on the plans there, it was about 7.5%. I think that covered almost every square inch of the front of that site. Now, certainly as the site expands westward in future phases, they'll be plugging landscaping along Doak Boulevard even further and more when that happens. So each phase will kind of be responsible for plugging in their 10% and making sure we match.
I'm going to hit it one more time, Kenny. George is exactly right. We got to play by the rules that we set for everyone else. And we don't want to fudge that, in my opinion. And we don't want to play games with it. We require this of every other applicant. The city needs to step to the mark and do what's right in that regard, recognizing that you've made considerable effort to try to accomplish that, but you need to get it right.
Okay, very good. Anybody else? Do we have a motion? If nobody else will, I will. So I will make a motion that the Planning Commission approves the major site permit SR 21-13 for the city of Ripon based on the findings and subject to the conditions of the staff report and adopts a negative declaration for the project. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Very good. The motion is adopted. It is passed 5-0. Ken, do we have anything else that we need to go into this evening?
So no, we still kind of have on the docket for next month the battery energy storage project that
Yes.
keeps kind of pushing out. So Not sure exactly. So far, we're still kind of scheduled for the May meeting for that. They're still trying to get us some final information on it. So I don't know if that's going to be a May or a June meeting. They're still digging up information so you guys can make an informed choice on that project when it comes in front of you guys, as far as safety, anything hazardous or such with a site like that. Something that we're not super familiar with. This would be a lithium ion battery energy storage project. So they're trying to get us appropriate information. So you guys have the appropriate information to make a choice on that project. And then we do have a couple that are kind of just in the pipeline, haven't really submitted applications yet. But we do have a couple other projects kicking around, non-residential stuff. So the trend continues. Yeah. The plans are in the building department for plan check now. So I'm not sure, probably another couple weeks, hopefully, and then they'll be getting their permits for that. And
Car wash and the gas station market as well.
yes, they were not allowed to move separately.
Excellent. That's why I was asking.
We made that very clear.
Yes. Very good. Any other commissioners' reports tonight? I think that's it. Thanks for a good meeting, guys. We're adjourned.